Hello everybody, Mike Levin, Tuesday, July 18th, 2017, around 9 a.m. on my way into work. I'll take the touristy route this morning. I gotta say it's a sigh of relief right now with there having been no extraordinary subway traffic in the morning after yesterday's getting stuck behind an accident on the A. And a weekend where even though I had an open house, I did not do 3 cats in the Catskills as I've been doing weekend after weekend except for Father's Day. I left the cats in the apartment for the open house, and I think I am going to ease up on myself and do that from now forward, along with other little steps so that I have excess capacity for other areas of my life which need it, including, hitting my goals and objectives at the office out at the ballpark and being a super awesome dad for Addie. That about sums it up. My 2 fronts remaining. And the work, goals and career stuff is only as invigorating as it is right now because I am, for one of the first times in my life, being paid for my actual programming abilities as a Python programmer, which is just an amazing feeling for someone who has always been in the world of marketing in some form or another, and always dusting off some programming language or another to achieve goals, often following into the easy default traps that are always around you. In my day, it was Active Server Page, which was the old Microsoft web technology. Right after they got past their most primitive tricks of IDC HTX files, if you can imagine how simple web publishing from a dynamic database could possibly be, with one file to connect to the database and another file for simple looping HTML templates. That was IDC HTX, which even predated VBScript, which is Visual Basic Scripting Edition, under Active Server Page, running on IIS, usually and mostly in conjunction with some form of SQL server. It was the Microsoft camp's equivalent of LAMP. Now, of course, there was LAMP, which I could have and maybe should have been on in those days to increase my familiarity with Linux way back in, I guess we're talking, 97, 98, as I was really hitting my stride on the Microsoft technologies. And then the carpet gets pulled out from under you because things are always improving and sometimes take such leaps that what you know becomes almost entirely obsolete. That happened to me on the Microsoft platform, and on these video and podcasts I do, I often talk about the fool me twice, shame on me aspect of technology, because so many things have these obsolescence cycles that it really is a pain to have to retrain yourself every, 5 to 10 years. And we're talking about like a 20, 30 year career in tech at least. You never have the opportunity to hone your skills and to develop them as people in, say, music, with being an expert player of some musical instrument like the violin, where muscle memory takes care of so much of what you're doing that all your excess capacity gets driven into that thing which only you bring the unique and distinct value to, that can't be reproduced more easily in some other way. It's important to use tools where muscle memory, spontaneous expertise, call it what you will, subconscious control, kicks in. If you don't, you're always plowing that excess capacity that humans have, conscious thought, the prefrontal cortex stuff, the special resources, into decoding and making sense of the syntax of the language that you're looking at. No, you should just be able to look at your code and have it talk to you. To read it as one would quickly scan a page of text and extract ideas almost instantaneously about shape and form and loops and structure. And I had a great discussion over the weekend, of all places, at the birthday party of one of Addie's friends in Inwood. And I met someone who, alluded to, needing to understand why a Java person would hate a Python person, and really go out of their way to make sure that person was not considered or approved for a position. And, I gave that background, that history of the different languages, where their genesis was and the roles they're respectively playing in industry today, both of which are, profoundly important. However, Python is highly accessible. Python allows you to commit it to muscle memory, certainly in way less time than Java does. You're writing your hello world in Python by the time someone even just asks the question, what does public static void mean in Java, and why do I need it for a hello world program? And yeah, so that's the essential divide and split. And I told them they were dealing with what really amounts to religious dogma more than actual practical programming ability, experience, qualifications. You can be just as qualified of a developer if Java is your primary language. I meant to say if Python is your primary language, but see, it's just really deeply ingrained. The computer science people, because of their 20-year control of the classes and education, their preference towards Java as the heir apparent to C or Pascal or any of the other languages that might be used to teach introduction to computer science, it's been replaced by Java over the past 20 years or so. So everyone who believes in doing things properly the computer science way, they have a strong Java predisposition, and for many valid reasons. And, instead of entering the language wars, you just spell out each one's relative strengths. And Java is rather deeply ingrained. It is the incumbent language in many fields. And why try and buck the trend? So if you're going to be in financing and several other, applications where the, zero fail, portability of systems, long-term durability was the key issues, then, become a Java developer and dedicate your career to developing, because you need to in order to keep yourself expert on your tools. More difficult tools, steeper learning curve, more high-paying jobs and long-term contracts at the end of the process makes for a very elite crew. And in almost any industry, they go through all these same cycles. Publishing went through this cycle as, once it required laying out linotype on a Gutenberg press. Enormous capital expenditure, a career, a field, which is a craft that you usually need an apprenticeship to get into. And then what you produce is actually scarce because it can only be replicated at the rate that a printing press can produce it. So even as much as the Gutenberg exploded information, it still had a narrow bandwidth, shall we say. And, along comes the Macintosh and the Apple laser printer for laser writer, I guess, but easy desktop publishing, spitting out the newsletter, takes it to the next level, and all the old school printing people, reject it. Amateur, the culture of the amateur, the age of the amateur, whatever you want to call it. But the thing is, once your tools kind of fade into the background and the mechanics of things becomes rather easy, creativity sets in amongst a larger base of people who are getting into the field because of lower barriers to entry. And a lot of those people are really talented. A lot of those people will do better with the new tools than anyone who is able to pay the technology, cost of entry in the past. So you had to be a technical person with a lot of ability to master difficult tools to be in many fields in the past. Tools become easy, new flood of people come in, all kinds of tension is created because the people from the old field lament the good old days and talk about how all these new amateurs in the field are driving down how much you can charge for jobs and are delivering crap quality. Every industry, especially those where complex tools are the what's required for creative products. See, when complex tools are create creative product that have value that people will pay money for, there's an elite priesthood over here with the ability to control the complex tools. There's revolutionaries trying to bring the tools down to be accessible by the masses. And then there's the masses going, oh, if only I had the right tool, I could be a professional like that and charge all kinds of money for my work. And all of this is true. And talent tends to rise to the top. Now, that's a really important thing. So all these things that were undervalued in the past, imagination, fancy, creativity, storytelling, art, everything having to do with entertainment, suddenly becomes very valuable in the new economy because, as I've said in the past, everything that can be automated will be automated. Everything tedious manual labor, the crossover costs of a robot doing it will continually be, crossing over with the price of the labor of humans to do the same work until eventually the machines win. The machines will always win with simple tasks, even if it requires slight moments of, can be according to rules, inspiration. Driving a car, probably the biggest example. It's the biggest employer of, I believe, males in most economies, the driving economy, the Uber and all that. So once the cars are self-driving, and they will be able to make split-second decisions better than humans, which will need to be made less often as more cars get onto the road that are self-driving, quality of life goes up for everyone who's on the, who's not a professional driver. And accidents go down, and the world is a better place. Everyone's worried about disaster scenarios, but just like Y2K, for some reason they never tend to set in. It turns out that the people making these systems actually pretty smart. It's not exactly Asimov's rules of robotics that are built into these things, but enough to make highly defendable moral decisions in those split seconds when a car needs to choose between veering left and veering right to avoid an accident, and what kind of property damage or human injury it would cause either way. It's going to make defendable choices. So there was that New York Times article that I actually heard about on Python Bytes, which is Michael Kennedy and Brian Ocken, credit where it's due. But they talked about the real danger of AI article from, I believe it was the New York Times, which is the impact it's going to have on economies. And yes, it will. The message that should be taken away from this is get your ass creative. Be able to produce that kind of uniquely human, can't be brought to the picture by a machine value. And that'll be pretty broad over the next 5 to 10 years. A lot of it may go into, training machine learning systems, training AIs, labeling data. The job of simply labeling data well exists. Services will be out there which are universal recognizers and mapping layers and all that stuff, knitting together applications like, Google search engines and fancy crawlers and monitors of the world, things that creep out into the real world through mobility and sensors, i.e. robots that tie back to these very web-like information systems, become commonplace and easier to build. I jump on the bandwagon on my own little places here because I know that knitting all this together is in the realm of a jack of all trades. So, start out with Python. All these machine learning systems either were created on or shipped with, Python capabilities. So you essentially do all your instructions that control the overarching system using Python, even though there might be other languages that are better suited for the task underneath. Tons of stuff works that way. There's Python libraries for all the Amazon services, for Hadoop, which is one of these distributed computing systems from the Java world. All these fancy Java tools like Endeca and stuff are all accessible through Python APIs. So the lingua franca to be adopting so that you can be expressive and achieve spontaneous expertise in your tools. The samurai sword is, sorry if that's politically incorrect, is Python. And to a lesser degree, Unix/Linux operating system, maybe perhaps to a greater degree. I guess I got to take that back. Clarifying the function of the layers in a stack will be one of my recurring themes here as I teach the hordes, the masses who want to move from not accessing this world to being able to access it with easy tools so that they can do these highly expert and well-paid and rewarding things. Well, I'll be one of those people. There's a lot of those people out there. People like Michael Kennedy are really leading the charge in the Python world. There's just wonderful speakers out there. Raymond's, is it Hedinger? Well, the people who are the core code developers for the Python language, the people who develop the main thing that gets distributed as Python, even though there's like dozens of variations. Those people are as well spoken as their work is inspired. They themselves as individuals are as expressive in their PyCon 2017 talks as they are in the libraries they created for the core library. So I encourage everybody to just delve into all this content that's out there. Mine might be the role of the shepherd, just directing people around to different things, just as are their roles. But for people who are totally green and totally new to this stuff, I'm someone who just, has been fooled way more than twice, going obsolete suddenly, instantaneous liquefaction of the firm technology foundation platform underneath of me. And in that won't get fooled again mentality, I discovered Python, and now I'm working in-house at a publisher. So good, awesome starting spot. So just about the office, so that's where I'll wrap up. Thanks for joining me. Hope to talk to you again soon. And don't forget to subscribe.